So I've recently delved into a database containing around 8 million replays. I'm sure he's talking about seawall.gg. That's what I use to farm all my pro replays. We're all aware of slight imbalances in various matchups. For instance, there's a 53% win rate for Terran in TVZ and small minor imbalances in other matchups. While these numbers can vary based on factors like maps, spawn locations, player skill, and the current meta, they are generally recognized and accepted by the community. With the data at hand, I tried to examine how some of these factors might influence the result of a game. Specifically, I examined how win rates in non-mirror matchup change as the game progresses over time. In essence, we'll be looking at a win rate segmented into 1-minute intervals. So this is ladder data. For example, for the 7 to 8 minute interval, we only consider games that concluded between 7 and 8 minutes by in-game time. This gives us an idea of the likelihood of a particular race winning at a specific time in that game. By doing this for every 1-minute interval, we can observe the win rate over time. Before diving into the results, let's understand the data used. You can skip this part if you're only interested in results. No, I want to see the data used. The data set comprises roughly 8 million 1v1 games since the start of 2018. Okay. So what, that's about 5 years of data. It doesn't provide a complete information from a replay, but rather the extracted data. Okay. The data does include the player's races, the game winner, thank God, the game duration, spawn locations, and APM versus effective APM. And to refine the data set, a few filters were applied. Games from 2018 and on. Game durations over 2 minutes. Yeah, that's good because otherwise you would have games where somebody ghosts the other guy. They exclude draws. Okay, not that we have a lot of those. Exclude games with AFK players. This is great. Exclude games on fastest maps and similar. Good. Get that out of the data set. Games exclude games on maps with fewer than 20,000 plays. Now, that number seems pretty high, but I guess the reality is, probably millions of games played on a map like Fighting Spirit. Below is the histogram. Is that a word? Didn't know. Displaying the frequency of each map and applying these filters. 13 represents Fighting Spirit 1.3. Oh my god. So Polypoid, I assume these numbers by the maps or the version of the maps. I didn't know Polypoid would have been that played. I would have thought Fighting Spirit would have taken it. So looking at this, by the way, the first 3 maps are, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but, generic 4-player maps. Seems to be what the general StarCraft experience is. Now, Eclipse is in here. That was the big 2-player spawn map for a while. There was a period where Blizzard was such a dumpster fire that we weren't even getting the maps updated, so we were kind of stuck on some of these maps. Icy Cup Fighting Spirit. Okay, so there's been 2 versions of Fighting Spirit. So I think in reality, Fighting Spirit actually is... I just now noticed this. So I would not have minded if they just combined these 2 statistics, just because if we're going to talk about all ladder games, how many people can really tell the difference between the 2 Fighting Spirits or no? So really, I guess Fighting Spirit is the most played map. And you can see as we get down here, I mean, these are, maps I guess we all know. Revolver, Retro. Some of these maps are also just newer than others. Retro is probably going to be one of the most played maps, but it's just new. All right, this is where it's going to get down and dirty. As I mentioned earlier, the y-axis displays the win rate, colored in green. A dashed green line represents a 50% win rate, helping us identify when the matchup dynamics shift. So PVZ. Now, again, this is all of the ladder games combined. So this is the Protoss win rate. So Protosses are basically losing before 8 minutes. And then you get into the mid-game where the Protoss is able to push. And so that's fascinating. And it dips back down, I guess, as defilers really kick in. Wow. Okay, so let's go to... Oh, there's more information here. This particular plot instantly sparked my interest, so let's start here. Key observations include Zerg dominates the game's early stages. The significant dip is around 7 to 8 minutes, can be attributed to Hydra Bust. This is the most striking example I've seen in the data set so far. Strategy build having such a profound impact. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Protoss takes the lead during the mid-game around 13 to 16 minutes. This surge might partially result from the Hydra Bust builds games that didn't end earlier, are likely ones where Protoss successfully fended off the bust, often securing favorable position. From 16 to 20 minutes, Protoss' win rate drops with Zerg taking the upper hand. Several factors might contribute, such as Protoss typically mining out their main and natural bases around 16 minutes. Yes. I would also just say Defilers as well. There's a slight uptick for games going over 30 minutes. Key takeaways that Protoss might benefit from trying to wrap games up while on 2 bases, as Zerg seems to favor. So I think it's just important to understand how matchups function and what races are trying to do in specific parts of the game. PVT. And here we kind of have an inverse. So right around here, this is, we're looking from 3 to 5 minutes. This is when someone runs in your base and steals your gas. You watch my stream. You've seen me do that a lot. Maybe proxy gates, Dragoon range rushes, stuff like that. But right around the 8 to 12 minutes, this is where the push comes. So again, this completely makes sense. Protoss can cheese just like Zerg can cheese Protoss. Protoss can cheese Terran. But then it's the Terran's job to push. And when we get into crazy long games right here, just around past 21 minutes, this is where the Terran who's turtled up starts to mine out. So I mean, he kind of says the same stuff I'm saying. TVZ. Boom. And it's the same thing again. Zerg can cheese here, so Terrans are just subject to risk of dying. So you just, if you're going to be a good Terran player, if you're going to be good on ladder, and this is also crazy, by the way, because it's like the entirety of ladder. It still kind of mirrors the data set we looked at for ASL and KSL. So TVZ, obviously there's the phase where Terran's pushing and controlling the map. So, if Zerg's going to win, they're going to be winning out here. And then when you get to crazy long games, it's kind of either or, right? Influence of spawn locations, close versus cross spawn, PVT. Okay, wait. Let me read this first. Here we use 4-player maps only and compare the win rate on close spawning positions to the diagonal case. So if you guys know cross spawns, it means you're on a 4-player map, you're on diagonal positions. And the reason why that matters is rush distances are longer. Zealot rushes are strong in close positions. Looks like Protoss overall prefers diagonal spawns. Yeah, I think this is a little bit less about rushes. It's just, one way to think about RTS games, and especially with StarCraft, is generally one race, as the game develops more, one race is trying to prevent the other race from growing. One race is trying to push. So as an example, PVZ, you're trying to hold off any rushes, develop, and then push out and stop Zerg from taking the map. That's true for TVZ as well. The Terran turtles up, waits till they have the right number of units, pushes out, tries to stop Zerg from taking the map. PVT, Terran is like the Zerg. Protoss is like the Zerg. So the Terran's turtled up, trying to hold off rushes, and Protoss is just trying to take the whole map. And so the reason why you see the win rates curve like this, the further along the game is, then the push is going to have its strength, but eventually it'll dry up as the resources dry up. And in cross spawns, yeah, Protoss would just prefer to be further away from the Terran, always. PVZ, let's see what he says. Protoss feels a lot safer in the early game in diagonal spawns. Later in the game, Protoss also seems to profit from diagonal spawns. Yeah, makes sense. Keep in mind, if you're both hugging the right side of the map and you're at the bottom and the Zerg's at the top, the Zerg can expand along the top part of the map to the far left side and expand away from you, which makes it harder to stop those bases. But if you're in cross spawns, either way the Zerg expands, they're technically expanding towards the Protoss. Makes sense. And before we even click on this TVZ, I imagine it's the same thing. Zerg prefers cross spawns. Early game wins due to sunken busts are much more likely in close spawns. Then for the most part, the game distance doesn't seem to matter at all. Interesting. Influence of players' skill, effective APM. So the mean APM is about 150 to 160. Terran and Protoss slightly ahead of the Zerg. We have 2 groups where both players are required to be above a certain level. Whoa! Sorry. Both above 150 in the perp and both above 180 in the blue. These are the higher level groups. Note that one is inclusive of the other, so here we expect a strong correlation. Artos is going to go ham with this one. Overall, slow Terrans get punished terribly by slow Protosses. It is interesting to see what happens when you have slow bad players and how that works out. It seems like if Terran can survive the 10th minute, they will have a comfortable 10 minutes of advantage to win the game. If they do not manage to get that, the game tilts towards Protoss again. Makes sense? Zealot rushes only work with the lower group. Hydras are deadly at all levels. That's definitely true. It looks like the lower group Zergs are worse in converting their late game advantage into a win compared to the higher groups. That's definitely true. When I'm against a bad Zerg, I know if I just let the game run, they're gonna fizzle out. TVZ, again, Terran profits the most from just getting better. Looking at the 5 to 6 minute mark, we nicely see that the higher groups gain their wins from sunken busting at an earlier time than the lower group. Terran dominance before Defiler looks really scary in higher groups. Influence level of play based on MMR. Okay, so this is what I was actually more interested in because, it's kind of hard to look at the game when you're including, things that are happening in E and D and F ranks where it's like they're almost playing a whole different game. Here, MMR data is used to examine the balance. A match MMR is determined by taking the average MMR of the two players' initial MMR values before the match was played. Several brackets of games are defined and compared. Additionally, a requirement is imposed on the max difference of player MMR to ensure only games of a meaningful skill difference are taken into account. For example, in red are games with a match below 1800, and the difference of the MMR of both player is 200. The requirements are somewhat loosened as games of higher level are examined. That makes sense as well. There's a point where you get to 2400, how many players, or even of that MMR, that you can encounter. All right, let's get into it. PVT. So the game balance is even at MMR above 1800 and tilts slowly towards Terran the higher we go. At the highest level, the matchup is roughly 52% in Terran's favor. Take that, Artosis! So from 1800 all the way to whatever the, 2400 and up, already in shambles right now. He's always said it's the opposite. Well, he's going to have to kill himself now. Sorry, Artosis. PVZ. Protoss is behind in all brackets and gets dominated at the highest levels where they achieve an overall win rate of 46%. Well, this is just, I should get the victim complex, not Artosis, just reading this. God damn. Cold, hard facts here. TVZ. Again, we see a clear trend where the matchup comes favored towards Terran as player skill increases. Artosis is having cold sweats right now. It looks like high-level Zerg vs. Terran is the hardest matchup in Brood War. Oh my god. Fascinating. Fascinating. Unreal. Well, thank you for going through those stats with me. I really love stuff like this. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe to the video. See this 1A, 2A, 3A shirt that looks so good? You can get that at tastelessthreads.com. That's my merch shop. We got a bunch of great stuff on there I think you'd like. Yeah. Have a good day. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in a future video. Bye-bye.